The question is, are you ready?
What do you guys want to talk about?
Let me talk to you.
Throwdown Nation, we are live on a Saturday. We are rolling on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter/X, Facebook, and TikTok. It is episode 94 of the Throwdown with Matt, and today we are throwing down with a Ukrainian pro wrestler who is currently residing in Spain. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Koby. How you doing today, Jake?
Hello, Matt. I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me. It's really my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I've definitely been looking forward to this. And, for those of you that are watching this live, if you have any questions or comments, just throw them in the chat and we'll either handle them as we go or do a little Q&A at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started, Jake, with the first and most obvious question, and that is, how long have you been wrestling?
Okay, so the easiest answer would be to say since 2011, because that's when I was able to get into the actual pro wrestling ring and have my first match. But in in Ukraine, there was no pro wrestling, like almost in any shape or form. Like there were like some pre-World War II attempts, maybe like even pre-World War One attempts to like introduce some kind of the sports entertainment that turned into pro wrestling as we know. But during the Soviet times, there was no pro wrestling at all. So yeah, and in Ukraine for a long time there hasn't been like any stuff, and basically there was some backyard wrestling that, as we know it in wrestling industry, and that's basically where my roots come from. And I'm I'm not like super proud of backyard wrestling because it has like this weird stigma, but I think that what you should understand is that we were just kids who wanted to wrestle, and we had absolute like zero like outlet to do so. So our only option was to be more or less serious and just do it wherever we could. And if we're talking about like when I actually started, trying all the stuff, it was in 2006 with my best friend at the time. I still keep in touch with him. We just live in different countries. He's in Israel and he's been there for like a long time. And I was in Ukraine. Now I'm in Spain. So, but we still keep in touch. And he was the first person that I tried the wrestling moves on. And yeah, in 2011, we were able to secure a ring. And that's when it all started on a serious level.
Very cool. So have you had actual formal training in professional wrestling? And if so, who trained you?
Yes, and this is also like a very non-conventional thing. Is couple of years into wrestling on the ring and stuff, I connected with this guy. His name is Billy Hazard. He also wrestled as Rusty Nail, and he's from Belarus. He's not like from Ukraine or even Russia. He's from Belarus, and he actually did my formal training because I like he also came from like a country that didn't have any pro wrestling, so he's also like mostly self-taught. But one of the things that he had at the time is he was friends with Japanese legend Yoshiaki Fujiwara, and he actually secured a contract with Pro Wrestling Zero One from Japan. And at the time, like around 2012 or 2013, the promoter from Pro Wrestling Zero One in Japan, he came to Belarus, and he actually made this Belarusian promotion like a Zero One Belarus. And some of the wrestlers from there, they wrestled for Zero One in Japan, including my trainer Billy. And yeah, he even went and he did like a shoot wrestling seminar at Fujiwara Dojo in Japan. So it's like this whole different world that not a lot of people know about. But yeah, he definitely like put a lot of things together. Like he taught us how to properly bump. Like he told us all like different kinds of bumps. Of course, the physical, the conditioning, all this stuff. He like told us about the wrestling structure, wrestling match structure, and a lot of stuff. So yeah, I would say that was the formal training that I got.
Gotcha. Speed round. The Miz.
Great on microphone.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, in terms of the early portions of your wrestling training, what was the most challenging aspect of professional wrestling for you to sort of wrap your mind and body around?
Well, I think the biggest struggle was to get my body used to bumping because when our first ring appeared in 2011, we didn't know anything. Can I curse just a little
Oh
bit
yeah,
or no?
yeah. Oh, of course, yeah.
So we knew jack shit about pro wrestling rings, and one of the biggest mistakes that we made is we put like an additional padding inside the ring. And I think like in the long run, it definitely helped us not to kill ourselves because it was like much softer than the regular wrestling ring. But like retrospectively, I personally don't like watching the videos of that like period because I see the ring and I'm kind of ashamed of it. And when I started bumping in Belarus on the real wrestling ring, basically, well, it wasn't like much different. Ours was still like a wrestling ring, but I guess because we weren't, because we didn't know how to bump properly and we had like this extra padding. That's why when I started bumping on the ring without this extra padding, I started hitting my head on the mat, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's something new." And it took me, I don't know, not like super long time, but it definitely was something that I had to get used to, not to hit my head on every bump.
Gotcha.
Oh, and the Billy was super old school, so every pro wrestling training we had to do 500 squats, and it was just next morning was just painful.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Squats are just killers.
Hmm. Yeah. I remember just like we stayed at this guy's house, and he's had like we slept on the second floor. And when
Mhm.
we had to come down to the first floor for breakfast, it was like, oh my god,
Oh, no
I
doubt,
can't.
no doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so tell us about the wrestling scene currently in Ukraine. It sounds like it's really catching on over there.
Yes, I would say that right now is like the golden time of Ukrainian wrestling because when we were starting out, we really struggled, to find places where to wrestle. We struggled to find the audience. Like at best, we were like being able to participate in like some music festivals or comic cons, and that's when we would get like a decent crowd. But on our show, on the shows that was just pure wrestling, that's when we really struggled to get like more than 20 or 30 people. And right now our boys, despite the fact that there's like a full-blown war going in the country, our boys were able to find a place where they not only like they struck a really good deal, like they changed part of the like this is like just a huge bar, and they changed part of like the floor just to like to look like a real like wrestling entrance stage. They like found guardrails, like it's found like a really cool lighting, and at the latest show they had like 500 people in the attendance, and it's
Oh, that's
just
wonderful.
yeah, it's super crazy to me, but I'm also like proud of my boys, and they do it out there, and it's just like amazing.
Well, with everything that's going on in Ukraine right now, the people need an escape from all of that. And the fact that you guys are able to do that, your friends and such are able to do that and provide entertainment and an escape is such a wonderful service to your country. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the show that they currently run is they also do like auctions,
mhm.
and like proceedings from these auctions, they actually go to support like military or like some other outlets that help people, because some of our wrestlers they serve in the military, and
Mhm.
in like between actual like combat missions, they still can go and wrestle at the shows. So it's like
Oh, that's
that's
great.
yeah, that's just like mind blowing, to be honest.
Absolutely. Well, um, definitely, we've definitely been keeping Ukraine in our prayers that the whole thing can be settled in some sort of a peaceful, fair, and equitable fashion. Because it's just a terrible thing. War is never a good thing. But hopefully this can all be sorted out in a way that's fair to everybody. So
Yeah. thank you for the kind words. I'm sure that people of Ukraine like always appreciate, that people, in the world they care about this. And yeah, I think sooner or later we will get there, and hopefully sooner.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, something I'm going to do right now for people that are not familiar with you and what you do, I found a highlight reel of yours on YouTube, and I'm going to share my screen and play that because it's actually quite impressive. You've really got some neat clips on there, and I'm going to go ahead and get that going here. That is really an amazing highlight reel, and watching that, I'm noticing a few things. You definitely appear to wrestle a power style, and watching all of that, your in-ring style, your strength, but yet, for a man your size, your agility. You actually remind me very much of Brian Cage. You in terms of a man your size doing things that most men your size can't, or at least don't. And I always love seeing the larger competitors do things like that because it's so unexpected. And so kudos to you, man. You've got a really cool in-ring style.
Thanks. Yeah, I Brian Cage comparison is actually a first for me. Like, he's definitely a really cool guy. I love his stuff, and I actually met him in Florida. I went with my wife to an Evolve show. No, it was Full Impact Pro, and he was there. And he actually when I met him, the first thing he said is like, "Oh man, that's a really cool T-shirt," and I had the Carnage T-shirt from the Marvel Comics, I think,
Oh yeah.
and he was like, "No, that's like a really dope T-shirt." I'm like, "Yeah, man," but so just exchanged like courtesies. I bought a T-shirt from him, took a picture. Just a really nice guy. Like usually I get comparisons to like Kevin Owens, which I think is also like a pretty spot on. And he was also like a big inspiration on my style. And yeah, I'm like I don't do like super high flying stuff. That's not really my forte. But yeah, I try to like do some things here and there to make it like more interesting. And yeah, so when I get back in the ring, hopefully this year, I hope to bring it here as well, and show it to a new audience here.
Gotcha. So you said that I guess growing up, wrestling wasn't that prevalent of a thing in Ukraine. So at what would you say is your earliest wrestling related memory? I mean, did you watch it at all as a kid, or how did you become a fan?
So back in the 90s, after the Soviet Union broke down, we didn't like get a lot of like merchandise or official stuff in any capacity. But what was really rampant was the we got a lot of VHS tapes with like American movies, like anything that was not non-obtainable before. And on one of those VHS tapes, there was a WWF King of the Ring 1993, and that's when I first saw pro wrestling. I was on this tape, and I was like just in awe. I was like, "Wow, that's super cool." And later, I think it was like 1998 or 1999, they started showing WCW Nitro on local TV station, because I think in Russia they have these TNT TV channel, which was like the Turner network,
Right.
and they had the European cut of Nitro, which was like only 1 hour and featured like maybe 2 or 3 matches, and that's what I watched when I was a kid as like the first things. But there was no like local wrestling to speak of course, or like any kind of wrestling shows happening, even like in nearby countries as well.
Gotcha. So, prior to wrestling, do you have a background in athletics?
Yes, when I was a kid, my father was very stern man, and he said, "Okay, you're." I think I was 6 or 7 at the time. He was like, "Okay, you're starting to go to school, but besides school, you also need to do sports if you want to be, a healthy person." And that's when he put me to the amateur wrestling, and I did amateur wrestling for the whole childhood until I was like maybe 15. That's when I kind of started, deviating from it and lost kind of interest. And but later in life, I also did not like bodybuilding, more like weightlifting. Got
Hmm.
into that. Never was like super shredded or just always the big person, but yeah, and I still do the gym to this day.
Got you. So, was there a particular point where your fandom took a shift and you started thinking, I think I could actually do professional wrestling?
Well, ever since I saw it, it became, like this pipe dream. Like ever since I saw this VHS tape of the King of the Ring, I was like, okay, that's something so cool that I would love to do it. And I remember when I was watching Nitro, my older sisters, they were
Hmm.
like saying, like, do you know it's probably, unreal. It's not like they're like hitting each other or something like that. And I was like, I don't care. Like, to be honest, it never crossed my mind if it was like real or not. I never had a phase where I was felt betrayed that it was like fake or something, like some other people go through. For me, it was always like, okay, it's cool, it looks cool, and I don't care. And that's pretty much my whole relationship with wrestling. I don't really care if a person thinks it's real or not. It was always like it's a cool factor for me. And yeah, obviously I never saw like a way for this to materialize. Like my dream was to go to to maybe United States and live there and start wrestling training there. And I think when I was in the high school, I met a friend of mine, and he was already doing some of the backyard wrestling uh, with his friends. It was like shortly after I started doing the wrestling moves on my best friend. I met this guy, and he said, "Hey, well, we're actually like doing this backyard wrestling." And at the time, they were just doing the backyard wrestling. They put the couch cushions just on the living room floor, and they would just do moves like that. And eventually, we upgraded to like a sports gym in a school. They knew they are like a gym teacher from school, and we paid like a little bit of money for us to just get access to the school gym. We would put the mats on the floor, and we would do wrestling there. So yeah, and that was like the first glimpses of like, okay, maybe I can start, earlier. And in 2011, we got contacted by this guy from Crimea, and he was like, "Hey, I always wanted to do like pro wrestling, to be like a pro wrestling promoter." And at the time, he was doing like women's mud wrestling, and he actually had like wrestling tapes that he gave to like this woman who was also like an amateur wrestling trainer. And he was like, "Okay, can you like watch these tapes and do this for me for money?" And that's what he was doing. Like, he was like promoting this women's wrestling, but he was actually not, he didn't find just like pretty girls to wrestle in the mud, like for the tits and asses. No, he actually like found girls who were into contact sports, and they came up like with this formula of like imitating pro wrestling, and they did it in the mud. And it was like, they were obviously cute girls, but they were also like, actually capable of doing real combats. And when he found out about us, he was like, "Hey, I will build a ring if you come over." And we're like, "Of course." Just and yeah, that's how it all started.
Absolutely. Speed round. Jeff Cobb.
One of the most powerful people that I ever saw.
Yeah.
Like, his strength is just absolutely, crazy, out of this world.
Yep. So I can tell by the comments that you've made that you've got a really great support system in your wife. What does she think about all of this?
She supports me. She supports me wholeheartedly. She actually been, not like a part of my wrestling career. She never was like on camera, but like behind the camera, she's like one of my biggest supporters. She like she's into photography and like arts and all this kind of stuff, and all of my promo photos and like in the wrestling photos from the events that we went that I wrestled at, it was all her. Like, she always took photos, and just in general, like, always like very supportive of me like pursuing this. And I think it goes like both ways. I also support all of her stuff. Like, for example, I'm wearing the t-shirt, and this is the like merchandise that she painted this, and now she wants to sell like this, like a t-shirt line.
Oh, that is awesome. That's awesome. we will give her t-shirt ventures some hype at the end of this.
Yeah, definitely.
So, away from wrestling, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
Um, I mean, any kind of nerdy stuff, I'm all for it. Like, ever since I was a kid, I watched anime, I read comic books, I play video games a lot. Like, I was never like too huge like into sports, so but I was into video game sports, you can say. So all of my like NBA and NHL knowledge is purely from playing video games with friends. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I would say that video games is like the second biggest thing for me in my life.
Gotcha. So, outside of the wrestling arena, what person inspires you the most and why?
Like just like in general, like the
Yeah, yeah, just in general, who inspires you the most?
hmm, to be honest, I'm not sure. I'm always like if you've seen the movie Creed, which is like the sequel to Rocky, there's like a
Mhm.
really cool scene where he says like your like main opponent is in the mirror, and that's basically like what inspires me, you know, to move on. Like just like to look at myself and say, okay, how can I improve my life right now, or what else can I do? I don't think I really have like, you know, like heroes in different people. Like maybe like I idolize some guys like Mick Foley just because I really love that he also like very passionate about like writing
Mhm.
books and wrestling and all this stuff. But I don't know. I never actually thought if I have like any like heroes that I aspire to be as. Like I just try to be the best version of myself, I think.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, where in Ukraine are you from?
I'm from city Kharkiv. It's I was born and raised there. It's a it's a pretty big city. It has like I think 3 or 4 million people population. So I went to university there. That's where I met my wife. Like basically, my whole life was in Kharkiv, and I really love that city. And yeah, that's my hometown. Uh, if you ever in Ukraine, I think Kharkiv is definitely one of the top cities to visit.
Awesome. So, and you're whereabouts in Spain are you presently?
Well, we're in the small town, just like maybe 30 kilometers out of Malaga, which is
Okay,
the southern part of Spain. This area is called Andalusia, and it's between Malaga and Sevilla. That's the area that we are in right now.
gotcha. Out of curiosity, do you speak any Spanish?
Not much, unfortunately, not yet. I'm still like in the learning stages of my Spanish because when we moved out of Ukraine, we I basically worked at an American company, so I didn't
Mhm.
need to learn Spanish like right away. My wife actually speaks a little bit better because she had like she did one-on-one classes. I I tried to do one-on-one classes, then it fell through. Then was busy with something, and I start to understand some of it. Like say I don't know, like if we're on the street or somewhere, and someone will talk to me in Spanish, I will understand some of it. I just don't have the vocabulary to reply back.
Got you. Got you. Yeah, I actually took 3 years of Spanish in high school and a year in college.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
I mean, even at this point, if somebody will speak slowly, I can usually at least get the gist of what they're saying, you know. And and I remember enough vocabulary that I can at the very least string together some words and kind of get my meaning across. I've had some encounters where I've had to actually use it, and that's been that's been kind of interesting, So
Yeah.
they say that the best wrestling personas are kind of yourself turned up to 11. So tell us about in-ring Jake Koby and compare and contrast him with everyday you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the notion that your wrestling persona is just you, just magnified, because that's what I always kind of tried to be, and that's why I can't. They also say that you need to tell them about, like, the perfect gimmick is the one that you can describe in 5 words. And even though I've been doing this for more or less half my life, I'm still kind of struggling, to just put it into 5 words. Like, I would say the the cheap answer that I could give you would be like the evil foreigner, because obviously I'm from Ukraine, and if I will wrestle here or when I wrestled in the United States, I would obviously do like a heel persona, and part of being heel, I would shout at the opponents, at the referee, and just in my native language. And because this contrast, it would elicit a reaction. But like, if you want me to give you 5 words, what like makes me like super unique, I'm kind of struggling with that. Maybe it's just my insecurities, and maybe I actually overcomplicate this answer. But yeah, I'm just trying to be like myself, but obviously, magnified like this stuff. Like during the match, I usually try to talk a lot. Like I definitely, I wouldn't say that I'm like super extroverted, but I'm also like not, like too introverted. I'm like somewhere in the middle. And when I'm in the ring, I'm definitely trying to be more extroverted. So I would always like to speak with the referee. I would say something to the audience, like maybe like some jokes here and there if something comes to my mind, and sometimes like to the detriment of me or not. Like there was one incident. We wrestled at this new place in Crimea. I forgot the name of the town, but basically it was like one of the cities that the women's mud wrestling wrestled at, and
Mm-hmm.
we haven't been there yet. And it was like, okay, let's see if it, if we are gonna bring them back. And I think because of me, they actually didn't bring us back, because it was one of those days when they had a lot of kids in the audience. And during my match, I hit my opponent. I told him to duck a clothesline. He didn't, and I hit him across the face, and my whole arm was covered in the blood from his nose. And
Mm-hmm.
and of course, just me being in the ring in the moment, I started like licking the blood from my arm. And and after the show, the guy came to our promoter and he said, No, you're not coming back because of that." So so yeah, I'm definitely like very in the moment in the ring, and sometimes it gets a little bit out of control.
Gotcha. So, tell us about your very first official wrestling match. What was it like? How did it go? What were your thoughts about it?
Okay, the official wrestling match, it was a triple threat. It was against two other guys. They are not wrestling anymore. Uh, it was we did like the very first time that we went to Crimea to like check out the ring and all this stuff. After like doing like 1 or 2 days of training, the idea was to just do like this a little show and film it on camera and make a
Mhm.
highlight reel that they will then use to promote our show and to sell to like pubs and like to sell our event. Basically, like make a highlight reel. And that's when we had like a crowd of maybe like 30 or 40 people, which were just all like friends and family, basically. But I would still say that it was my debut match, and I wrestled under the name Sinner, and it was actually a pretty fun match. I wish I would have the video of it. I only have the highlight reel, and there's like bits and pieces of this match in that, but I never watched it like in full. And it was like it was going like really well. We did all of our spots, and I remember the very last spot was Avalanche Ace Crusher on me from one of the other guys, after which I was pinned for the win. And I remember we're like on the top rope, and I think I even like said, "Oh, the match is like so cool. I'm like so pumped." And we start like flying with the Ace Crusher, and like all of
Mhm.
a sudden, like in the middle of the move, like we started like disconnecting. Like he like went a little further than I, and I'm like flying there, my face first, and then thinking, okay, perfect. My first match, everything was great, and the final spot, like we completely disconnected. But I don't know how. Just like I remember, like it was like in slow motion. He like took me by the singlet with both of his arms, and like in the air, he connected me back like to his shoulder, and we landed just perfectly.
Oh,
And
that's impressive.
yeah, he like he just completely saved the spot. And I remember like it's like such a vivid memory. It was like really like in slow motion, like him just pulling me back to himself, and like, okay, no, we're landing this perfectly. And yeah, it was definitely like a lot of emotions, and just like remembering it now, it brings me back.
Awesome. Speed round. Triple H.
Big nose.
Yeah.
Mm. Uh, the thing is that I was just joking about his
Of
nose
course, of
not so
course.
long ago, so that's why it's like the first association. But yeah, Triple
Yeah.
H is. I actually love his stuff. All like he was never like some wrestlers that I watched. Some of them I had like this period where maybe I didn't like them or just didn't get them, and over time I learned to appreciate and was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's actually pretty cool. But Triple H, it was like I really saw that he was something special ever since I saw him for the first time, and he was always like a really really cool guy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, initially seeing him when he had his run in WCW as Terra Rising, and I mean,
Yeah.
even then, he had something special. You could tell that he was probably going to be something if he got the right breaks. So,
Hmm.
but so if you could only be one, would you rather be great in the ring or great on the mic?
I would say for me, it's definitely great on the mic, because ultimately, even though wrestling is like very physical and stuff, like most of the stuff that we remember from wrestling is stories and the moments. And usually, what leads to those stories and moments are your engagement with the audience. And the engagement with the audience comes from talking with the audience. So I would definitely say that being great on the microphone is my you know my goal.
Gotcha. So, it sounds like over the course of your career, you've done both. Do you prefer yourself working heel or babyface?
I would say that I'm more comfortable working heel, just because I don't know, maybe like just my natural personality is more like that. But I feel like just being a jerk uh, kind of makes me feel like, I don't know, it just feels right being a jerk, even though like in real life, my wife actually tells me that I'm too soft on people and I love people too much, and sometimes to my own detriment. But yeah, as in the wrestling matches, I'm comfortable working as a heel, but as a babyface, I'm okay as well. Usually, when I worked babyface, I would lay into jokes even more. Maybe even like do some comedy spots. Like one of my favorite things to do was, do you remember the? Well, I mean, I think you definitely remember Chris Candido,
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah, he's like great talent. I always loved his matches. And I remember one time I saw him doing this spot where he took a sunset flip, and the opponent put like his trunk, put his tights so that he would show his ass, and then he would
Hmm.
still like wrestle for like a minute or two, not like putting them back, but like put his bare ass. And it's definitely one of the spots that I stole from him. And it's just super fun to engage with the people like that. I remember one time I was making my entrance, and there were like a couple of kids near the entrance, and I got this idea that I put a little bit of the toilet paper inside of my tights, so that when I pass them by, they will see me from the back, and they will see like a toilet paper, as if I just came, from the from the toilet, and I'm always like super angry, like shouting at everyone. So they would start laughing, and I kind of noticed that they laugh. And my reaction is like, I look, I find the toilet paper, and I just like start throwing it at them. So yeah, that's definitely something that I love to bring to the ring. It's just this stupid, silly entertainment. And even though I love working as a heel, I don't mind working as a babyface as well.
Gotcha. So, do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan? A match that you can have watched it a million times and it just never gets old, and there's always some new little something you can pull from it. Do you have a favorite match?
Yeah, I think my most favorite match was Super Dragon and Excalibur versus Kevin Steen and El Generico from CZW Cage of Death 6, because I remember I saw this match. I downloaded it from the internet when I was like 13 or 14, and it was the first exposure aside of ECW and WWE to like this independent wrestling. And because it was like nothing that I've ever seen before, it just blew my mind. And I think like it kind of like it changed my whole like perspective about wrestling. Like I was like, okay, it's not only the TV stuff, there's also like this whole other world out there. And just because of this like significance of this match on my life basically, or in the wrestling fandom, I would say that it is absolutely my favorite. And I watch a lot of wrestling, and I usually don't really watch the same matches over and over. Like I
Right.
definitely have friends who like watched HBK and Undertaker WrestleMania matches like dozens of times. I usually don't rewatch matches because I don't know, just I rather watch another match than just rewatch the old one. But I think this match is one of the few that I actually come back to. And
Yeah.
one other match that I really love, it's actually a more recent match. It's I think it was the first pay-per-view match of Tyler Bates and Pete Dunne for the
Hmm.
NXT UK title. I don't
Yeah.
know, something about that match just clicked with me, and I watched it like 4 or 5 times alone in the first month of it happening.
Yeah. Those two guys both wrestle such a physical style that I mean, seeing those two guys together was just magic. I completely agree. But
Yeah, yeah,
it's funny. I'm a huge fan of both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but I actually really like their indie stuff, as Kevin Steen and El Generico. In some
yeah,
ways, I like that almost better than what they're doing now, because you know in WWE, I mean, you're wrestling a fun style, but it's a much safer style. And seeing those guys really throw it all out there on the indies is just a lot of fun. But I mean, they're taking a much higher risk, and they're putting their bodies through a lot more abuse. So I mean, it's sort of a give and take thing, but yeah, I've been a fan of both of those guys for a long time, and yeah, I mean, they are both just so talented.
yeah. I definitely like watched them ever since I ever saw this match on CZW. I watched a lot of their matches against each other as a tag, and they both are pretty influential to my style because I also use a lot of moves that they do. And yeah, I can definitely agree that WWE is much safer than what we can see like on the independent scene. And as a fan, obviously, it makes you like, okay, yeah, that's like so cool. But and the wrestler yourself, sometimes you're like, okay, do I really want to, you know,
Yeah,
go to these lengths myself?
right. So, and this can be present day or past. Who would be a dream opponent? Who would Jake Kobe love to have the opportunity to share a ring with?
I have two names, and it's Kevin Owens, which is again where we've talked a lot about him so far, and he's definitely a huge inspiration. And I think that our styles would work together uh, because I'm just like a carbon copy in some ways of Kevin. But I think that
Mhm.
I still have something of my own to introduce there. But if I would be able to work anyone from the past, I would definitely love to work Roddy Piper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Roddy Piper is like out of the old school wrestling. I think he's like
Mhm.
my favorite. He's definitely like on the top. Like his promos were just really great, and his wrestling is also like very physical, but also like I don't know, it's just something about Roddy Piper that I always admire, and I would love to wrestle and learn from him.
Absolutely. So, you've been doing this long enough that I'm sure this applies. I know right now you're in the process of recovering from an injury, correct?
Well, yeah, I had like some issues with my mental health and just physical health, like my knees definitely hurt a lot after wrestling all this time, and just like I had like some issues with my thyroid, and yeah, right, not so long before pandemic, I kind of stepped away from the wrestling ring for a few years, and yeah, I then the war started, and during the war, of course, I wasn't thinking about it, but when we left Ukraine and settled in Spain, I kind of started slowly like rebuilding my life. And one of the one of the biggest things that I started doing this year is I went back to the gym to to get back into shape and all this stuff. And one of the main motivations of going back to the gym was like, okay, I want to try and wrestle again, you know, but this time here. And of course, when I have a chance to go back to Ukraine and wrestle again in my home country as well.
Absolutely. So, what is the most significant injury that you have suffered either wrestling or training?
I can think of two of them. First of all, I hit my right knee. I remember this guy, he was trying to give me like a vertical suplex, but for some
Hmm.
reason he couldn't like hold me properly or something. And when we went down, I felt that we're falling like incorrectly. So to save my head, I landed on both of my knees, especially on my right one, and I don't think it's ever been like the same afterwards. Um,
Mm.
it's like so that's why I when I see wrestlers without knee pads, I personally like, oh no,
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, like for me, the knees are like super important. And the other like injury that I got, it was at the Comic Con in Odessa, and I interfered after the match to start like a feud with one of our guys, and I was supposed to wrestle a different person who would like come back to the ring like to his defense. And a part of my interference was he won like this cup, a trophy cup,
Hmm.
at the end of like this little tournament, and I was supposed to break the cup. And when I started breaking the cup, it had like these small wings on it, and it actually cut me here like super deeply, like all the
Mm.
way like this. And I just remember like I didn't feel it like right away, but then I just look at my like hand, and it's just like bleeding profusely, and I see like the pieces like of meat between my fingers, and I'm like, okay, not very good.
Yeah.
So I just like I took the microphone, I just said a few words, I put it down, and just started like kind of like running outside. And the
Mhm.
guy who I was supposed to wrestle, he was coming to the ring, and he looked at me like, what the hell happened? And I just showed him my arm, and I immediately saw on his face like, so yeah, these are like my two like. Gladly, it wasn't like something worse. Like my good
Right.
friend Sean Phoenix, you interviewed him, and
Yeah.
obviously his answer to this question is the time that when he broke his skull, which is like
Yeah.
very like scary.
Yeah. I mean, something like that is potentially life threatening. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so
I'm sorry.
what is your take on the role that social media is playing as a promotional tool for wrestling?
I think that social media is both great and kind of like uh, because like it's a okay. I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. Like if you can break a certain point in social media where you have like a lot of engagement, you just can continue growing by staying consistent. But until
Right.
that point, until you like break this, I don't know, like this algorithm or whatever you want to call it, until you break it can be just like you're posting and posting and posting all of your stuff, and it just doesn't get the views, you just don't reach people, and it's like really hard. So like
Right.
in this regard, it's like it can be really great as soon as you get to a certain level, but until then it's pretty brutal like to try and put your stuff out there. um and I don't know, like I'm thinking about how to grow my social media. Like I never had like my pro wrestling pages before. It's
Hmm.
only this year when I decided like, okay, if I'm gonna start trying to get a booking in Europe, I actually need to have like a portfolio, and I need to have my wrestling page. Obviously, I had YouTube where I put my wrestling matches, but because in Ukraine we have like only one wrestling promotion, it was never like like a problem to get a booking in Ukraine. And because I was one of the like founding people who also trained like 50% of the wrestlers in Ukraine, and if I didn't train someone directly, they were trained by someone that I trained basically. So yeah, I decided to start my social media page, and I've been just like posting my old photos and videos, and actually making some new videos to try and just like when I actually start reaching out to the promotions here, they can take a quick look and say, okay, yeah, this guy did this and this and that and that. And one of the coolest advices that I got from one of my friends, he told me that I should have a Google Drive folder. And in that Google Drive folder, I should have my entrance music, my promo pictures. I should have a couple of full matches. I should have a couple of promos. And I should have a highlight reel. And when I reach out to the promoter, I give them this Google Drive folder, and they can, if they want to watch a full match, it's there. If they want to see what's my promo is like, it's there. If they need a picture to make a poster or a match card, it's also there. If they need my entrance music, it's there. So definitely one of the things that every pro wrestler should have.
Very smart. Very smart.
Yeah.
So, knowing everything that you know at this point in your life, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Well, it would be either find something different and and don't go into pro wrestling because you will be just healthier and happier. But that's half a joke. I obviously do not regret about anything. But I think my advice would be work smarter, because obviously some of the stuff that I did when backyard wrestling obviously like hurt me in the long run, like my knee. Like if I wouldn't like backyard as much, my knee would be okay, maybe, hopefully, and just yeah, and just in general, don't rely on doing like these high spots. Just be like really smart, learn how to work. And yeah, if I could give myself an advice, it would be definitely, as much as I love my country of Ukraine, it's definitely, you couldn't get the wrestling education there, and there's not like a lot of places to work. So maybe if I could change one thing, I would try and actually move from Ukraine to either to Europe or to United States, so I can have this easier access to the wrestling business, basically.
Gotcha. Well, something that we've done in all of these that's just been kind of fun is we've let the current guest pose a question for the next guest. So my previous guest the other night, I had this guy. He is a wrestler based out of Florida who is also part of a mascot group for the Savannah Bananas baseball team. He wrestles under the name The Cheese. And the question that he posed, I had told him a little bit about you, and his question is, what are you doing currently to further your brand and to try to get noticed by promotions that you want to get to?
Mhm. So right now I'm building my Instagram page, and aside from posting old pictures, I take videos of my matches. And I wouldn't say like I'm super good at video editing, but I'm making these little highlight reels of myself, and it may be like a little bit egoistical, but I actually only put my own offense in those little videos. I never put like opponents, doing stuff on me, because my thinking is like, okay, this is my wrestling page. I'm promoting myself, so that's why
Yes.
these little videos have only my offense. And one of the other things I really want to try, and when I get back, is to have a really quality merchandise. And uh, I don't have a lot of designs, but right now I only have like only this design. Uh, this is my. I'm sorry if you can see it. This is like my this, like a sticker
Yeah.
with me, which is like really cool. And aside from like these stickers, I also have these stickers with the QR code that I plan to just tag on the streets. Like if I see like a wall that has like a bunch of stickers, I would go there and I would put the sticker on, and the QR code is the link to my highlight reel. And I don't know, I don't think it will be, you know, like that Vince McMahon or Triple H will go on the streets of like Malaga and he will see this QR code and he will scan it and see my video and will be like, okay, he's hired. Obviously not. But maybe like even if some like kid or a teen person or whoever like scans it and sees it, it's already a success. Even if it works for like one stranger. If it works for multiple strangers, it's also pretty cool. And yeah, so my strategy is to not only have like this Instagram page of my videos, but I also want to really like come up with some really cool merchandise. Because a
Absolutely.
lot of wrestlers, yeah, I just wanted to say that a lot of wrestlers, they have like these cheap T-shirts and cheap 8x10s, which is fine and all. But I think like people really love quality. And again, my wrestling friend, he wrestles as the Chad. He's also based out of Florida. He's the guy who told me about the Google Drive, and he also told me like he noticed that people just love cool merchandise, right? So I don't want my merchandise to look like typical wrestling merchandise. I want it to appeal to people outside of wrestling. And if I can achieve that and have like this really cool merchandise to sell to people, I think it will be really nice. Like say Bullet Club, their t-shirts. He
Mm-hmm.
said he met a lot of people who wear Bullet Club t-shirts because they thought they look cool and they bought them at Hot Topic and they don't know it's from pro wrestling. So
Right.
I think this bridging this gap would be really cool.
Gotcha. You know, it's kind of funny. You know, speaking of the Bullet Club merchandise, I've got a funny story I'll share with you. Um, a few years ago, I was in a local grocery store right here in this little town in Metro Atlanta that I live in, and there was a woman in the produce area of the store that she was wearing a Bullet Club shirt, but it was a design that I hadn't seen before. So you know, I mentioned it. You know, I was walking past her and I said, you know, I really like the shirt. That's a design I hadn't seen before, and from around the corner walks Tamatonga. Um,
Nice.
and I'm presuming that was his wife or girlfriend or whatever. But he comes. I guess he had heard me talking to her, so he comes walking around the corner, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and he holds up the thing and two sweeps me, and
Nice.
yeah, and you know, um, I was so caught off guard that we didn't really have a conversation. You know, we just kind of went our separate ways, but it was just a really random, just cool moment. I don't know what he was doing uh, in our town because at that point he was still over in Japan primarily.
Mm,
So
that's
it was,
cool.
yeah. So anyway, just sort of a fun story about Bullet Club merchandise.
Yeah, I think one of my funniest stories about meeting a wrestler. when I was in United States, I would come like I worked for a company that made point of sale systems for different stores. And when I was traveling to United States, we would come to the store, we would break down the old point of sale system, we would install the hours, and then we would spend the next day teaching the stuff on it. And I was working with this guy from Mexico, and I remember he overslept. We were like super late on our plane. We arrived to the airport. He speaks okay English, but just like a little bit, you know. I think it was like his first time in the United States, so he was kind of lost. Plus, he's like super sleepy. And I remember we walked through the airport, and with my peripheral vision, I see Johnny Gargano in the airport, and
Oh,
I
cool.
assume, yeah, and I think he was waiting for Candice, who was like she was dealing with the airport staff. So I
Mhm.
turn around to this guy and I say, "Wait here." So I completely abandon him. I go straight to Johnny. I introduce myself. I say, "Hey, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to be like a nuisance. But if we can take like a quick picture, that would be really cool." And he was like super nice. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, of course." Because I said like, "Hey, I'm like from Ukraine. Like far away. It's like basically like my only chance." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I just love the fact that I just abandoned this guy. I'm like, okay, I, I I don't care about the flight and you. There's a wrestler that's a cool guy, and I want to meet him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, since this is part of a series, do you have a question that you would like to ask to the next guest? And,
Mm,
and the question doesn't have to be particular to him, but I can go ahead and tell you the next guest is going to be this Monday night. I've got a wrestling commentator from here in the Atlanta area by the name of Don Miguel.
mhm.
But so, like I said, it doesn't have to be particular to him, but is there a question that you would like to pose?
Well, I was thinking about the question: which fictional character is closest to your wrestling gimmick?
Oh, I like that. How would you answer that?
Oh, I don't know. Like, imagine Homer Simpson, but in wrestling tights.
I like that.
Yeah, I think just in general, Homer Simpson is like the fictional character that's closest to me, and that's pretty much the gimmick that I would like to be able to portray.
Gotcha. So we're pretty much at the end of things now. So we definitely want to give your wife's effort some hype. But is there anything else that you would like to give some hype to? Do you have any upcoming shows or anything at all that you'd like to talk about?
So I don't have a show that I will be wrestling at because I think that I will try to get something lined up for the summer. But I definitely want to plug my wife again. This is the design of that she made, and she has like tote bags. She was also thinking about doing cups and stuff. Her Instagram is super cute dot project. She didn't like start selling this stuff. Like she's like still in the development stages. She's working on building a website, and she only had like a few sales here between like friends and family. uh, and she also like she ordered different T-shirts, and now she wants us to wear them, to wash them, to make sure that they don't go bad or something before she actually starts selling and all this stuff. And yeah, but I closely work with my boys back in Ukraine. um, the name of the promotion is Ukrainian Wrestling Arena, and you
Hmm.
can find them all over the social media as UWA underscore Ukraine. I, even though I am here and they are there, I still like talk with them regularly. I help like every boy that we have in the promotion, they reach out to me, and I always try to give them advice. I help producing matches, and just like be overall involved with the promotion. And their next show will be next week, and all of their shows are available on YouTube, and I think they are really worth watching, because our guys, they really try really good, and I couldn't be more proud of them. So yeah, definitely look them up, and take a look, because like if you want to expand your wrestling horizons, watching wrestling from a new country is definitely a perfect opportunity for that.
Oh, for sure. And like I said earlier, the fact that they are able to provide some entertainment in in a situation where there's just a lot of unfortunately bad stuff happening in the country is just such a wonderful thing. And in the ticker on the bottom of the screen, I did add the UWA Ukraine Instagram to that. So everybody watching this, please give them a follow and check their stuff out. And Jake, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a lot of fun, and you can consider yourself part of the Throwdown family now, and you've got a standing invitation to come back anytime you want. And as far as what we've got going, like I said, Monday night at 7, I've got episode 95 with Atlanta-based wrestling commentator Don Miguel. Wednesday, the 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern, I've got episode 96 with pro wrestler Angela Fuentes, who goes by the prestigious Professor. And then on Thursday, the 13th at 7 p.m., I've got episode 97 with fellow pro wrestling podcaster Justin from the ILW podcast. And, for those of you that have been watching this live, thank you. For those of you that'll be seeing this on replays, thank you for that. If you like what we've got going here, do the old like, comment, share, and subscribe. And before we wrap this up, do you have any final words you'd like to say to the audience?
Yeah. Also, want to thank everyone who tuned in or who will watch it in tape. I hope that you really enjoyed this conversation, and it was really a big pleasure, to talk about Ukraine and my wrestling journey and bring more eyes to it. So yeah, like support your local wrestling, and I hope to see all kinds of fans, at the wrestling shows in the near future.
Absolutely. And so, like I said, I'll be back Monday night with Don Miguel. And in the meantime, be good to each other, love each other, keep Ukraine in your prayers, and